Hello and welcome to episode 266 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is March 3rd, 2025. And before I start with the normal program today, there's something I have to tell you that I forgot to mention last week. You might remember that I test knit this fun Bobble Hat by Deb Milstein, and she wrote me an email or sent me a coupon code for you to use if you want to get the pattern slightly off. So if you were interested in the hat pattern for this Bobble Hat and you haven't bought the pattern yet, you can now use the code Kiko20 to get 20% off. Kiko is written with all capital letters and the I is not an I, but it's an exclamation mark. So it's K exclamation mark KO 20, all capital letters. I will put the coupon code underneath the video in the show notes and you can see it there. So if you wanted to get the pattern for this hat 20% off, now's your chance. Thank you, Deb. So I'm really happy I didn't forget again. And onto the normal program. What am I wearing? So today I am wearing the Make It Quick cowl by Stephanie Lotvin that I had as a finished project last week. It's knit out of Hansa Farm pure alpaca yarn. The dark blue is the bulky weight and the contrasting colors are all DK weight held double. And this is what it looks like on me. I washed it. I did not really block it. I just laid it flat to dry. It's even softer than before. It's really nice and warm. The size is quite nice. So it keeps my neck warm, it keeps my chest warm, and it's very simple to wear. It doesn't really make sense to wear it the other way around, something I was thinking about last week. And I'm not quite sure how to fold things in to make it look perfect, but I think it looks quite nice this way. And yeah, it was a really quick knit and it's really easy to wear. This is what the whole thing looks like again. This is what it looks like from the back. So there's a lot less fabric in the back than in the front. I could wear it this way around and have just a little bit of cowl in the front if you really wanted a warmer upper back. That's what you can do. You can also wear it a bit off center. I may do that in a minute. Yeah, so that's the cowl I'm wearing today, and the pullover without sleeves. Don't know if you call it a vest or there's any other name for it. The name for the pattern in German is Suchtlappen, which is something like addictive piece or something like that. And the pattern was got this name because you can get addicted to knitting these things. So this is a very simple knit. If you follow the pattern on YouTube, you just start with some ribbing, then you knit in stockinette until the armhole, then you split into two pieces without any decreases, but you go back to knitting a rib pattern. That's how this pulls in a little bit and you get this nice armhole without having to work for it. And then you just cast off your stitches and sew the shoulder seam, and that's it. I knit from Opal 8-ply sock yarn. So you could use a fingering weight yarn held double to get the same thickness, but you can use any yarn, any needle, any gauge. You just have to measure and figure out how many stitches to cast on, and then it's a very simple knit. The only thing that I changed, oh, by the way, I put one of my tags. I very rarely do that. I usually forget about it, but I think it looks quite nice on this one. So the only change I made, you can see here, I added some short rows after the ribbing. So I knit the ribbing in the round, then I did some short rows. So the back is a bit longer than the front, which I think is really nice. So this is really nice and warm, but I don't have too much fabric here when I'm sitting. And then the rest is just knit straight up, and then the two pieces are knit straight. Very simple knit, very nice pullover without sleeves. So I'll put my cowl back on, and yeah, so instead of wearing it really straight, I could just move it around a little bit so it looks like this. I think this looks fun too. And Still keeps me nice and warm and everything. Yeah. Okay, so much about what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects and only 1 new cast on. I'm really proud of myself. The only thing I now need to do is pick up some of the old whips that are lying around and work on them and get them finished. Put one after the other. Now let's start with the first finished object. The older of the 2 finished objects is the mini gnome that I knit for as my February gnome. So I actually finished knitting him or her in February, but I forgot to post him in the February thread, and now it's too late. So officially I can't take part in the February prize thingy, and officially I probably won't be able to participate in the I knit a gnome every month thing, because you have to link to the to your posts in those threads. But it doesn't matter. I will still knit a gnome every month because I like it and because I love having them. And yeah. Okay, so back to this gnome. It's Gnock, the something to write gnome about mini version. And I used this stripy opal sock yarn for the hat, used a single color blue for the body and the legs, and then the fun stripy socks are so much fun. So there are so few stitches in these socks that with lots of yarns, they probably wouldn't stripe. So that's why Sarah put in these white stripes. But because my yarn really changes color a lot, they would have been stripy even without the white stripes. But I still love the white stripes. I still think it looks so funny. And then a white beard. And because this is the mini version, I wanted to show you what she looks like compared to her big sister. And this is the original Gnock. So they both knit out of fingering weight yarn. So it's the same yarn weight for both gnomes. But you can see there's a big size difference. Show you the backs. So there is quite a big difference in size. If I show you, I don't know if I can show you the hats. I can probably hold them up by the hat. So it's a really big difference. This one's rather heavy. I put something heavy inside, so she can sit really well, and so I shouldn't hold her up by the hat. But looking at the socks, these looked like small socks at the time I knit them, but now compared to her little sister, they are fairly big. Yeah, so these are Gnock and Gnock Mini. Really happy with how they turned out, and yeah, really happy to have them. The hats really should hang forward. That's how Sarah planned them to be, so that's what they look like. And because these are the only 2 gnomes that I have with legs, I think there was one December mystery gnome that had legs, but I don't have that at the moment. So at the moment, these are the only ones with legs. And the ones that with feet, I put into the shelf for today. So those 3 have feet, but no legs. So it's so much fun with all the different kinds of gnomes that Sarah Schura keeps coming up with. And yeah, I always have lots of fun making them. So that was finished object number 1. And then, of course, finished object number 2 has to be the Sock Madness socks. Last week, I showed you the way they were knitted. They were hanging off of each other. They were conjoined twins. I've since finished the second toe. I've cut them apart. I picked up the stitches and I cast them off with this neon pink yarn. And I really think the pink looks really nice together with the green and the blue. And I'm really happy. I finished the socks. I sent in my email and the socks were approved. And I was sorted into a team today. This morning, the emails or the messages were sent out through Ravelry. And I am in Team X for the first time. This is my 5th Sock Madness. I was in Team B the first time, and then the last 3 times I was in Team W, and now I am on Team X, and it's called Team Xyphosura. It's some sort of sea animal, some sort of crab. Not the most beautiful animal, but anyway, this is my team this year, Team X, and I'm really looking forward to the first round to start. Can't wait to see what kind of crazy sock pattern we are going to knit, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to tell you something about them next Monday. So, second finished object for today. Then on to works in progress. I continue with socks. I'm still working on my friend's sock out of the rainforest colorway, where I knit most of the sock in the 4-ply yarn. I did the heel in the 6-ply yarn in the same colorway. I continued knitting on the foot. I actually got quite a bit done, and I'm not too far away from the toe now. So depending on when the Sock Madness sock drops, maybe I can finish it this week, but I'm very confident that in 2 weeks' time at the latest, I should have finished this sock. Yeah, not much more that I can say about that. That's all for socks right now. I'll show the other socks at the end of the video. And I will now continue with the with my Christmas cast on last year. I'm using 2 colors of sock weight yarn, and I'm knitting a double knitted cowl out of this beautiful sparkly yarn with a dark blue opal sock yarn. And I have added another pattern, another colorwork pattern stripe. Difficult to explain. So last time I showed it to you, I'd finished the houses, and I've now knitted these like bubbles, and I've started the next pattern, but you can't really tell anything yet. So I always alternate between a big pattern and a small one. Now the small one is a bit bigger than the other small patterns, but I think that's okay. I can do whatever I like. So I have this bubbles pattern as a small pattern, and I've started a bigger pattern, colorwork pattern next, and I hope to have that finished by next week. And I'm really happy with how the cowl is growing. So I'm knitting it like a scarf, but I started with a provisional cast on. So once I finish this scarf, I will Kitchener stitch the beginning and the end together and have a cowl. And yeah, should be really interesting to see how far I get with 200 grams of sock yarn. But for now, I just enjoy picking out new patterns, stitch patterns, and slowly adding one after the other. So that's that. And oh yeah, the patterns I'm using for the cowl are mostly from this book, Doodle Knit Directory by Jamie Lomax, but I'm also using patterns from an advent calendar that I was given with 24 more stitch patterns by Jamie Lomax, and so I'm mixing and matching those patterns. And the new project that I started is also from this book. So in this book, basically has lots and lots of colorwork patterns, but it also has several projects. There are mittens and socks and a scarf and a cowl, which is a bit different than the one that I'm knitting. But there's also a headband in the book, and that's what I cast on now. I am changing a few things. So this is what the cowl looks like in the book. And you can see it has this interesting knotted effect in the front, and then it's just a headband that's knit in the round, and then this is where you sew it together. And I am using, maybe this picture also helps to see what it's supposed to look like. Now I decided to use a sock weight yarn. The headband in the book is knitted with a DK weight yarn, but I decided to use a sock weight yarn. And my main color is this dark blue by Hansa Farm. So this is their alpaca sock yarn. And I am using this colorful alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm as the contrasting color. And it some places this yarn is fairly dark, and there is not a big contrast between the two. I hope it'll be okay in the end. Yeah, but I show you what it looks like. And I used another pattern that looks like bubbles from the book And this is what my knitting looks like at the moment. So I cast on stitches, and because I'm using a thinner yarn, I'm using more stitches than the pattern calls for. But I think this is the size that I like. And I started knitting the bubbly stitch pattern, and you can see here the contrasting color is fairly dark, so it's not very visible. But then there's this light bit where you can see the bubbles really nicely. And now there I'm back into a bit of a darker part of the contrast color. So far, I think it's okay. It doesn't matter if the contrast isn't always that strong. And I have no idea, to be honest, how long a color repeat is in the contrasting color. So I'll just keep knitting and see how things come out. This is really very nice and soft. It's a double layer because I'm knitting in the round. Plus I have all the floats on the inside. So this is really quite thick. And I hope that the knot in the middle isn't going to be too big. If it ends up being too big, I might undo it and then just seam it with a simple seam and put it to the back. But I don't know yet. At the moment, I am still thinking of folding it up and sewing it together with the end. And then I'll just have to see how big this knot turns out to be. Yeah, but I'm really happy with this bubbly pattern and the blue colors, and looking forward to having a hat band at some point in the future. Not in a hurry with that one. So that was my one new cast on. Then to some more projects that you already know. I continued knitting on my Advent calendar pullover, and I just lost the yarn. Doesn't matter. No, I didn't lose the yarn. This is, oh, I still have, no. Okay. This is the next color I want to use, so it doesn't matter that it fell down. Now, I finished the first back or front underneath where the neck opening is. So this is the first sleeve, this is the shoulder part, and this is the first back or front. And I already finished that the last time I showed it, I think. Anyway, I finished knitting the first color of the second front or back, and it's almost the same size as the first one. I think I knit one row less, and I've now started the second color, which is the same color as this one, but it looks a bit different at the moment because it just started at a different point of the colorway. So I think this yellow and this yellow is sort of the same. Yeah, so really happy to see this pullover growing. There's a knitted on ribbing, kind of ribbing on the bottom of the pullover. That looks like this. It's fairly long. It's a bit longer than I originally planned, but I'm really happy with it now. And yeah, really happy this is growing and looking forward to, well, getting it done is saying too much, but yeah, just enjoying adding colors and seeing how they come together is a lot of fun. Now, the other garment that I am knitting is the pattern battle that I started last week out of this beautiful color. I am knitting Tin Can Knits Vest Friends Vest. So this is actually a vest. So this doesn't have sleeves, but it's open in the front. So that's a different to what I'm wearing here. And I just continued knitting on the back part. It's the upper back of the vest. And I think I've knit more than one color repeat now. So you can see all the colors that are in the yarn. It's this turquoise, the dark gray, and the blue. And yeah, still a very simple knit. And I still have to add quite a few more rows to get to the lower end of the armhole. And when I finish that, I can pick up stitches for the front and so on and so forth. Yep. Not too much to look at yet, but yeah, really enjoying that as well. I keep saying that I enjoy my knits, but I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? We should be enjoying what we're doing. So that's that. Then I added a few granny squares to my green blanket. So I picked this Abloom MKal subscription colorway to add to my blanket because I was using 10-gram minis by Opal that had some green in them, but I ran out of minis, so I decided to use a 100-gram ball of yarn that has green in it. And because I wasn't crocheting from 10-gram minis, I decided to add one big square. So I already showed that some time ago, but now I've started crocheting 10-gram mini squares, and you can see that this is like 1/4 of the big one, and I crocheted that one, I crocheted this one, and I started the next one but didn't finish it. So because I use 10 grams for each of the squares, basically I should be able to do 10 of those squares out of 100-gram ball, but because the bigger one is slightly bigger than 4 of the 10-gram minis, because I always add another round when I join the squares. This is a little more than 40 grams, so I think I should be able to get 5 of the squares out of this ball of yarn, and then I think I need 3 more squares to finish my blanket. But I think as soon as I finish this square, I might lay out my squares, and I could start, or I could continue crocheting them together. So not quite sure whether I will actually finish all the squares before I start crocheting them together, but we'll see. But I'm really happy I picked it up again, happy I did some crochet last week, and I'm also looking forward to finishing this blanket. This has been in the works for a really long time now, so it's really time I get this done. And that already brings me to our knit along. And this year I decided to have a sock knit along every month. And for February, I did a tutorial video on how to knit socks with the yarn held double. And I used a sock weight yarn and a mohair lace yarn held together, and did baby socks for the tutorial video. And now for the knit along, I picked another alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm with a mohair silk yarn that was originally made by Hansa Farm, but they discontinued this yarn, unfortunately. I'm holding them together, and I finished my first sock. So this is what it looks like. I knit seat stitch the way I did in the video, and I finished the first sock, and I started the second one. And yeah, so I haven't done too much of that yet. The stripes are in a different, so this is a different color stripe in the main yarn than in this sock. Can't really see it right now, but I think as soon as I've knit more stripes, it'll be more obvious. And I will try and get a move on with these socks because we're already in March. And this Thursday, the next tutorial video will be published, and I'll be showing how to knit this Estonian spiral pattern, which I've knit a few times in the past. And I really like how the color stripes get broken up by this stitch pattern. This is really easy to knit. I'll explain all about that on Thursday. And then during this week, I will start some grown-up socks with this pattern, and I'll show them to you next week. Yeah, but this is the pattern that I will be showing on Thursday that we'll be knitting in March. And for April, I prepared the first sock. So I always knit the first baby sock to figure out what to do. And then I knit the second sock in front of the camera. And for April, I decided to do helix knitted socks. So helix knitting means that you knit several colors, usually 2, but it could be more. And instead of finishing each round and then crossing the yarns over each other, you don't have a beginning and end of round, but the 2 colors just keep chasing each other in spirals. And it's not difficult to do. So I promise all the socks we'll be knitting this year will be fairly easy to do. But you need 2 colors, and I decided to use this blue. I think is that the same? No, it's a different blue than Mini Gnock, but it's another Opal blue, and I decided to use this leftover yarn in one of the 100 Wasser colorways. It's fairly light, but it has lots of colors in there, really. But because baby socks use so little yarn, you can't see a lot of color in my first sock. And this is what the first sock looks like. So I used the blue for the ribbing, the heel and the toe, and then did the helix stripes in the main part of the sock. And you can see there's no beginning and end of round. And for the first 3 months, I did a short row heel, like with this sock and this sock. But because I wanted to show more than one heel throughout the year, I did a heel flap and gusset heel for this sock. So this is the heel flap. And this is, I don't know, this is the heel turn, I think. So it's a straight heel turn. This is the heel that I learned to knit as a child from my grandmother. And these are the gusset decreases. There aren't too many because this is a tiny sock, but you can see them here. And for a bigger sock, you'll just have more decreases, but it's the same technique. So once you can knit these, you can knit any size of sock. I did do the same toe. I'm not quite sure whether I'll do different toes throughout the year, but we'll see about that. You can see a slight color variation, but not too many different colors. It will probably be different for the second sock, but we'll see. So this is the pattern that we'll be knitting in April, and I'm just preparing it. But I finished the first sock, so I wanted to show it to you because this is something I knit last week. And that brings me to the end of the video. I've now shown you everything that I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!